Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast. And today I'm delighted to have with me actually an old friend, Eric Batty from Brooklin Tree Care. How are you doing, Eric?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me here today.
It's awesome to reconnect anyway after a few years, I think it is.
It's been a couple years.
So I'm going to, before we dive into who you are and what you do, I'm going to ask you the usual question, which is, in your opinion, what do you have one or two things that separate tree service companies that are absolutely thriving with those that are struggling and just about surviving?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think there's more than one or two things. I think at the end of the day, it's, work hard, right? You really can't go wrong with hard work. And that goes for all aspects of the business, whether you're, out doing tree removals or pruning, or whether you're going to be, working with like arborist growth partners, like a company like yourself, or if it's, dealing with your customers and clients, like just work hard and, be the best that you can be at what you're trying to do.
I like that. And I saw on your website, you guys actually say you work hard as well, right?
Yeah, I grew up on a farm. So it's my brother and I that run the two divisions of our company.
Yeah.
And, when I was 9 years old, I'm out in the field, raking and tedding hay. And by the time I'm 12, I'm cutting and baling hay. And, then there's usually a couple hours of farm chores before school and after school. Hard work, hated it when I was a kid, but now, in my young 40s, I look back and man, I'm glad I grew up on a farm.
So tell us a little bit about how you got in the industry and, how the company developed to where you are now and what you're doing.
Yeah. So previous to becoming an arborist, I was big into climbing, big into ice climbing, alpine climbing. I used to race mountain bikes competitively, raced on the national team, traveled the world, racing World Cups, that kind of thing. And some of the climbing partners I had worked as arborists, and this is going back into the early 2000s. And they were always telling me, if you want a good job, that pays well, it's fun, you get to work outside, try this arborist thing, working as a production arborist or a tree climber. And I'd always get, another contract with my sponsors and, go race another year and climb as much as I can, just kind of like dirt bagging it, really. And then finally, 2010, I was like, you know what, I'm done with racing. I sat down, I called every company in the phone book looking for a job. I think I called about 45 companies. It was end of my racing season, which was the fall, and nobody was hiring. And then I got offered a really good job at a township, which I didn't want to take because it was pretty far away. And and I was just about ready to accept that job at the township. And a great local company called and said, let's meet. And basically I started kind of right away there. And that was my intro into the industry.
Uh-huh. So you were like fresh. You didn't know anything. You just went in and started working from the ground up.
Yep. Yeah. Went in the company that I worked for, he had hired, arborists with rock climbing experience before. And I had a pretty good climbing resume, which he really liked. And I grew up on a farm, so I'm good with machines and I'm moderately okay at fixing stuff. I pretty much went in green. Picked it up pretty quick because I had a lifetime working with saws and felling trees and climbing. So, you definitely advance faster than somebody that's never done any of that. It was a great company. Met my current mentors there. So, that was my intro.
And then what was your progression from that up until actually running your own company?
Yes, I was at that company for a couple of years. And then just, kind of a long story, but not to get into that. I ended up leaving that company and my brother did as well. And so he started at the same company that I was at about 6 months after I did. And we both left there and we're kind of like, you know what, we have really good mentorship. Let's start our own thing, and we did. We really registered a business. We started purchasing equipment and really haven't looked back since.
And was it based on just the work you'd done, or did you get yourself any education?
Yep. 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 Yeah. We both went to Humber College, which is the Arboriculture program, one of the programs in Ontario, Canada. We went there, did our apprenticeship, which is 2 years. And then when we finished our apprenticeship, both Mark and I actually were invited back to the college to start teaching, which was amazing. Because if you want to learn something really well, it's one thing to learn it, but to learn to teach it, you're learning it at a totally different level. So we both worked back at the college until I think 2019. So we left just before COVID.
Oh, very cool. I've heard that program is quite a good one, right?
It's a great program. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's got a good reputation. So anybody who's looking at getting education, get in touch there and hit the ground running. So what about the journey from actually deciding to start your own company to where you are today? What are you focused on? How did that go? Are there any tidbits you can tell anybody if they want to start their own company, etc.?
Work hard. It's a grind, right? The good times are good. The hard times and the bad times are bad, right? I think, it's like any small business owner, whether you're a tree service, tree care, or you're a plumber, or you're owning, a restaurant, whatever. When it's your own company, it's your pride and joy. Make it your pride and joy. Do it as well as you can. But you're married to it, right? So it's, for me, like our company, I'm proud of what we built. I'm proud of our reputation in our community. It's neat to, I don't know, it's neat to get good customer feedback on the company that we built. But yeah, that being said, it's a ton of work, right? There's no shortcut to it, right?
So how do you start?
Start a company?
Yeah. And, get equipment and
start by
work.
You literally just start. So you register a business, get training and education. I think one thing in our industry that a lot of people often put the cart before the horse, and that's with mentorship, right? Because our industry is so multifaceted. It's not just one thing. There's essentially like for me, I'm a production arborist, so we're like an industrial athlete, right? So it's very physical. We work at heights. We work at heights with sharp things, which actually puts us into one of the most dangerous trades in the world because we fall under logging as well. You need to know plant health care. You need to know biology. You need to know all your fungi. And, is that tree that you're about to climb 90 feet up and start to dismantle, is it safe to climb? What is that fungus at the bottom? What are those fruiting bodies? Are those something that you don't need to worry about? Or is that something that you should be very concerned about and not climb the tree and look for an alternate method of dismantling that tree, right? And so mentorship, right? Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, right? And that's what I try to do. I'm kind of good at moderately good at a bunch of things, but I have if there's something that I'm nervous on, or I don't really, I'm just need another opinion on, I have a great group of colleagues, which are experts in their field that I can call on for their experience. Right. And so, yeah, I think, that's one thing. Starting a business is starting a business. You have purchasing equipment, you got to know your numbers and stuff. But I think definitely mentorship is one thing that doesn't get talked about enough. And then don't sell yourself short. Right? Far too often I see companies starting out, which is amazing. Like I was a company that started out at one point, but they're undercutting everybody just trying to generate revenue. And that's one of the things, like it doesn't help your industry, right? So those first 100 customers that you gave a discount to, like for a couple different ways here, but when they call you back in a couple of years to come back and do the work, and now you're charging rates that you should have been charging from the beginning, you're going to lose that customer anyways because you've now tripled or doubled your price, right? But what we see, especially in our area, there's a lot of companies starting out, again, which is amazing, but that they're so keen to get work, they're going at below operating cost numbers, right? And so that instead of bringing the whole industry up and our standards up, they're starting to bring stuff down, and you're forcing everybody else to try to match it because people are like, why would I hire this company? They have a 5-star rating. They have hundreds of good Google reviews. They have the best equipment. They have the best training. But, so-and-so here, they're an arborist too, and they're a third the cost. Why would I not hire them? You know? And so we're seeing a lot of that right now. And so anybody starting out, and I've talked a lot with a lot of companies that have started out in the last, 5 or 10 years, just with any information I can help them with. And it's just whatever you're going to charge and whatever you got to figure out what you need to make. Don't sell yourself short. Don't offer those.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in my mind, you have to know your costs in order to know what you're going to charge, because you're going to have a margin. So are you
Absolutely.
going to go broke or not? And we, in what we do as well, we have a lot of costs. We were just talking to somebody just before our call saying that all of our bills are in US dollars, and this gentleman was Canadian. Yeah. So we don't necessarily reduce the price just because you're Canadian from the US dollar price that we have, because our costs are so high, right?
Yeah.
To do a good job. But I often think that people just pick a number sometimes.
100% they do.
Right?
100%.
And that's not a way to grow a company.
No, you gotta, like, when I started my company, I'm pretty methodical and thorough with how I do anything, right? I research it, I learn as much as I can, I hop on podcasts like this, I read books, I talk to people, I absorb as much as I can. You gotta figure out what your operating costs are, right? What you need to make, just throwing numbers out there, some days you might come out in the green, some days you're in the red. Like, that doesn't, for us, because we're smaller, I quote every job that we're on, or most of them. And usually we can figure out within probably about 2% of our elapsed time on that job, and usually if we do 500 jobs a year, there might be 1 to 3 jobs that were out by maybe more than 5 to 10%. And it was just something came up unforeseen that we weren't able to assess beforehand. And that's just the nature of it, right?
What about when you're starting off? How do you decide, and I'm kind of asking you this as somebody who really started from the ground, how do you decide what services you're going to offer in order to be profitable, not take on too much, manage your costs, and ultimately be able to grow and scale into different services?
Yeah, I think that's a personal decision, right? I think, as like for me, I like climbing. I love climbing trees, and I like the production side. So I like removals. My favorite is pruning. Like, I love pruning trees. If we can preserve, mostly our urban canopy, that's the best. Because if just dismantling trees, done tens of thousands of those. But pruning, you get to come back So from a business side, you're creating a reoccurring customer, right? So you're creating somebody that, you might be back there every 2 to 5 years to work on their tree. So it's reoccurring revenue. It's, sorry, there's just somebody walking by the front of my house.
No worries.
Yeah. I live in the country. What are you doing
Do you
here?
know them?
No, I don't really know them. I think they're lost. Anyways, you just got to pick, like, to hop in the industry and go, we're going to do plant healthcare, we're going to do tree removals and pruning, and we're going to do air spading, and I'm going to do arborist reports and all this stuff. Like, it's too much for one person. If you're just starting out, if you have partners and you can come up with a good business plan where one partner is looking after this aspect of the company and one partner is doing this, then that's fine. But to hop in and just be like, I do everything. Yeah. You're never really going to get good at, certain things, and for us, like, we're production, right? So we're pruning, removals, stump grinding. We do a ton of tree planting, and any like plant healthcare stuff, right? We farm out. So we have other good colleagues that specialize in plant healthcare. Any, air spading, that kind of thing. Arborist reports, we can do them. Like, we're all certified arborists, provincially qualified arborists. We can do them, but you're going to find it's easier. What's easier for us just to have an arborist that specializes in writing arborist reports, do any arborist reports that we need, so you can be more efficient surrounding yourself with people who are really good at what they're good at.
Collaboration and teamwork.
100%. Yeah, and that's
Okay.
that's one thing. That's one thing about our industry, and it's the same in Canada. It's the same in the States. When you go down to the big conferences, you go to TCIA. It's not like a lot of other industries or any other industry that I've been involved in. It's almost like a big family, And I should rephrase that. The industries or the companies that are pursuing excellence in the industry are the ones that are part of that big family,
Right.
right? And companies help other companies, like when I see other competing companies out working and I know they're a good reputable company, they have training, they have education, they're doing things properly, and we're friends with them. We all they can be working down the street, total competitor. And if we're having lunch at the same time, we'll have lunch with them, or we'll stop and say hi. It's not, it's not like, this is my turf, get out of here.
Right.
That doesn't bring the industry up, doesn't bring the standards up. It kind of compartmentalizes everybody off, which I don't think is really a good thing.
That's cool because, and actually, I was going to focus on that a little bit and the whole competition aspect because there are a lot of tree service companies around. You take a town like Toronto. I'm surprised how many there are.
There's a ton,
right? And sure, we have competition, but you're saying it's not like other industries where we really want to, bad things to happen to our competitors. If you're growing a tree company, leverage other people, like you said. I love your example of arborist reports. Yeah, you can do them, but you prefer not to.
Yeah.
Right?
After working a day in the trees and working on the tools all day, the last thing I want to come home do is come home and have to sit down and write arborist reports.
Right.
I rather just have somebody else do it during their normal operating business hours and then already have them done.
Right.
You
Get good partnerships. Don't be confrontational with other companies. Work together.
No,
a good
work
way.
together. Right.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, that company, we had lunch with another company just before Christmas, right? They were working down the street and we kind of finished at the same time. We had lunch together and, shot the shit for 20 minutes and, they're a competitor, right? But at the same time, we see them at the conferences, it's still, they're good people, and I'm happy they're working. I'm happy they are, doing good work, that they're contributing to our industry and they're providing for their family,
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, you had mentioned as well that you have two divisions to the company or two separate companies. Tell us a little bit about those and why you went in two different directions there.
So it's my brother. I look after Brooklin Tree Care Inc., which is services our residential division, and we work about a 45-minute radius from our home base here in Brooklyn, and Mark runs Brooklin Tree and Crane, and so the reason we did that was right from the beginning. We started two separate companies because we're family, and so that was purely to protect family relationship first. So if anything was to go bad, we're two separated companies, right? So everything's on the books. There's no, well, you're working more than I am. There's no discrepancies. It's literally just one company. It works like this, but they're two separate companies, right? And they intertwine pretty heavily.
Interesting.
And so Mark looks after Brooklin Tree and Crane. And that's, Brooklin Tree Care hires in Brooklin Tree and Crane, 3 to 4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week, but average 3 to 4 days a week. And then that frees up 1 to 3 days a week for Brooklin Tree and Crane to help out other companies. So we do a fair bit of business to business with that.
Okay.
Right.
That's interesting.
So, because we have a grapple saw truck that we built in 2019. We were one of the first ones to do it in Ontario. And just to keep that thing moving, essentially, the maintenance plus payments on it is like a house mortgage. And so if we can keep that thing moving a couple extra days a week, it's helping paying for the machine. Plus, again, it's helping out other companies that, we're friends with, right? And generally with the crane, we'll travel farther than our residential customers, like our residential customers, it's about a 45-minute radius, and that was actually something I did right in the beginning was I kind of looked at a map and I drew, about a 45-minute radius from our base and said, here's our service area. outside of this service area, I'm going to refer you to this company or this company, or here's a few other companies to contact, right?
Right.
And then that way we're cutting down on travel time, which it's kind of unbillable time, right? You're not driving all over the country doing quotes and estimates to meet with your customers and clients. You're keeping things tight, right? And the busier we get, really, we've almost shrunk that to probably about 30, 35-minute radius. And outside that, we just, here's a couple companies in this area we know and trust. Just give them a call, and hopefully they, flip us back some work, right?
Right. I see a lot of tree service websites where they would list, I don't know, Toronto, and then they would list Muskoka. Right, that's a long drive, and I'm thinking to myself, I just want to roll out of bed and work.
That's tough. Running all over the countryside doing work, like one, it's you're logging just even to do close quotes, like that's unbillable time.
Yes, exactly.
And so the man hours put into that is just, maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not. Where we see an issue is, in our metropolis here, like towards the, Toronto, which is, we're about an hour outside of Toronto. So Toronto, and then suburbs, we're east of Toronto. Pricing is different. And so we see a lot of companies coming from rural towns that are, we'll chase work wherever, right? A job's a job. And it's like, okay, well, like, it's true, but, it's also, you're hurting other companies that are local in that area, right? And if your goal as a business is to be a province-wide company, then that's one thing. But there's only really, a couple companies in the province of Ontario that are province-wide companies.
Right.
But we see a lot of that where they come into our areas from areas that generally the pricing is cheaper. And so that it drives the price down here a bit too. Right?
That's interesting. Do you see a lot of companies come and go? I'm just asking.
Yep.
They come and go. They get into drive prices down, and then they're gone.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty common. Yeah. So usually after you have a big storm, a windstorm, an ice storm, or any kind of catastrophic event, you're gonna get companies pop up because people just see it as work, and it is
easy. Let's start a tree service company.
I got a pickup truck and a chainsaw, and here I go. Look at these guys. Look how much money they're making.
Right.
And there's usually a huge influx of companies after a storm, and they're in the industry for a few years, and then they're like, "This is really hard. I got no work. All my equipment's super expensive. I can't afford it," and they sell it. And so we see that. We also see people starting companies too soon. So when somebody starts a company too soon, don't have good mentorship, aren't connected in with those other companies, kind of like I mentioned. We see that where they don't understand how to bill or how to price. They're just like, I make $1,000 a day. And you're like, $1,000. Like, what happens when your truck breaks down? And it's $20,000 in repairs. Like $1,000 is a day is not really that much for a business, and they're just so excited for money, and they'll work in the industry for 3 to 5 years, and then again just drive pricing down, drive quality down, and then they leave.
They're always working in a reactionary kind of capacity instead of actually I'm guessing the best results are if you actually, like you said, you understand your numbers, but you also plan for growth. You plan for the jobs that you're going to get. You make sure you schedule, especially with our winters as well.
Sure.
I imagine if you schedule ahead of, forward a couple of months, that's going to keep you busy instead of just changing jobs every day, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I think for the companies that are out there that want to be legitimate, right? You got to plan for the hard times, not the good, right? And I think that's a good kind of benchmark is when there's a storm and there's tons of work and insurance jobs are coming in and everybody's just throwing money around and people are buying equipment and all the dealers, like, they can't keep anything in stock. It's because people are just buying equipment. But that's not what you build a business on. You don't build a business on a peak. You get this whole space underneath it here that holds that peak. That's where you plan for. You plan for that time. That's your bread and butter, week after week, month after month. Right?
Foundation.
So it's your foundation. That's exactly it.
How about How about your experience growing a company and some of the hardships you've had and how you've dealt with those and got through those, or the difficult things that might have happened that you've crushed and you've succeeded? Because I can't imagine that it's plain sailing.
No, it's not. The, the obvious ones are, equipment breakdowns, just normal road bumps in running a tree care company. But the one that I struggle with the most was when you have a disgruntled customer or a neighbor or somebody because I'm very proud of what we do. I'm proud of the quality of work we offer. I'm proud of our service. Like, we do a good job. We treat everybody's property as if it's, better than our own. And if you have a customer that's maybe not happy or upset or, something like that's probably the hardest one that I've had to overcome, is 'cause I just take it so personally.
That's what I was
you
going to
know,
say. It hurts, right? Because you're proud of what you
it
do,
hurts.
and sometimes
Yeah.
things just go wrong. It's
Yeah.
simple as that.
And that's it. And it's not even,
Or,
things
or
go wrong. Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
people.
Where I really, for us, like, again, we do things properly. We cross T's, dot I's. It's rare for something to go wrong. Rare. Like, for something to be broken or anything like that, I can't even remember the last time something like that happened. Because we've priced jobs properly, right? So we're not rushing.
Right.
We're taking our time. We're coming up with our work action plan. Like, we're doing things properly, right? But it's when there's been a misalignment in expectations of the work. And that usually comes with pruning, right? Removals is removal, right? A tree removal is a tree removal. But with pruning, because proper pruning, what people visualize sometimes as proper pruning is not actually what proper pruning is, right? And so people have this misconception that, half my tree is going to be gone,
Right.
And, if you're doing, let's say, a crown reduction or you're subordinating some big overextending stems, oftentimes that really difficult work that we've done isn't as noticeable as maybe what they thought they would see, right? Because it just is what it is. And that's usually the one we have the hardest time with is some customers want more is more. They just want to see lots of big cuts up there, right? And then some customers, and well, this is kind of a bunny trail here, but then you have some customers that less is more, that don't want to see barely any brush coming off their trees, and that's actually one kind of interesting thing with our industry is it's just, there's such a wide gamut of customer expectations. It's not like plumbing where it's like, toilet goes in, gets plumbed in, toilet's done, toilet works. With us, it's like when you're looking at, let's say, a massive 100-year-old, 100-foot tall, 100-foot wide silver maple, people's expectations and what actually needs to happen in that tree sometimes just misalign, right? And that one is usually the one, because usually we're proud of it. We just came down from a day of pruning a monster tree. We're super happy with it. And the line that usually gets us is when the customer goes, "That's it, you're done?" And you're like, "What do you mean we're done?" But even still, just through wording,
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
And this is a tidbit, but it's choose your wording wisely, right? So when we come down, I never ask the customer, "How does it look?" Right?
Yes.
First thing I say is, come down, and we're like, "Looks good, doesn't it?" Right? Because you're leading them in, and you're already showing them before they say anything that you're proud of what you've done, and that might change that outcome. It went
Interesting.
really well up there. It looks good up there, doesn't it? We subordinated all these stems, tons of brush came off. You saw how much came off there, and usually you can tell when their face is like, you can see it a mile away, right? But that's something, but I learned to do that. I learned just
I
key
love
wording
that.
and key
The
phrases,
choice
right?
of words, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How you interact with people.
100%,
Yeah,
right?
that's cool. That's very cool. But at the same time, I guess you got to educate the customer as well, because if they were arborists, they would do it themselves,
100%.
right?
And because we're small, we're a smaller company. We do about 500 jobs a year. Right from the get-go, we vet hard, right from the office. We don't, about probably about 40% of our point of contact, so people that reach out to us, we don't even go look at, right? Just right off the hop. And that's just, so sorry, somebody's calling me.
All good.
My phone's connected to my camera or my computer, which is connected to my headphones.
We can edit everything out of this.
Yeah, let's get Dave Ordanis on the phone here. Anyways, it's what was the question again? I forget.
It was about educating people, but actually moving on from that, something you were saying is really interesting to me, because you're talking about pre-qualifying your customers, essentially, and not
100%.
taking every job. Okay, so the natural inclination is a job comes in, I'm going to take the job and make some money.
No, that's not the case.
Okay.
We not vet, but we've gotten to a position where I want our customers to want to hire us, not to hire us because we're the cheapest, right? So right from the office, it's, Ali that looks after our office. She has a series of questions, and she's amazing with people. Most of the times, the best feedback we get is Ali in the office. But that in itself is a whole other thing. You want that customer's experience to be good, punctual, and friendly right from the get-go, right? And so our first point of contact with Brooklin Tree Care, or Brooklyn Tree and Crane, is a person that's super friendly and super easy to talk to on the phone, right? And so, usually it's, we try to get them to send pictures, right? So what's your expectations? What's your timeline? When do you want to have this work done? Is it just routine? Is it emergency? We're booking 12 to 14 weeks out. Okay, well, I want it done next week. All right, well, then we can't meet that, right? Well, we could, but we'd probably have to add another zero onto the back of that, estimate, right? Which most people don't want to do. So it's just figuring out what clients are worth going to meet with, right? So right off the hop, because if you just are like, I'm going to go quote everything, there's so many times you're going to meet with people and it's just a waste of time. It's a waste of their time. It's a waste of your time, right? And if you can just start to figure out a streamlined kind of vetting system, you're going to have more free time or more time to actually get to customers sooner, right? So
focus on the type of jobs you want to get, the geographic area you want to work in. I love that you were talking about who answers the phone in the office, because I hate to say it, but that could be a sale or a lost job, depending
100%.
on how, right? Your conversion rate is, we get 30% of our tree jobs. Yeah, but you lose 50% by the person who just picks up the phone and says, yeah, how can I help you?
Yeah,
right.
That's it. That's it. Absolutely.
Amazing.
I look at, if I'm calling a company and I need something done, to even just have somebody answer the phone and, talk to, that's amazing, and like we talked about a little bit before the podcast started there, arborists are often good at tree work, not always the best at business work, right? And so for us, the best investment I ever made was not equipment. It was hiring somebody to manage our office, right? And that was the best investment. Now I don't have to do any scheduling. I don't have to do any billing. I don't have to do any like all the behind scenes stuff with QuickBooks and all that, the massaging the clients and right. dealing with the clients. I still do all the estimates, but it's all organized for me, right? And having somebody there that can answer that phone is that was very, very, very key.
And really it's, some people would look at that as a cost, right? I'm starting my company.
It's a big cost.
Afford that. It is a cost, but it also saves you a lot of time. It saves you a lot of money.
Sure.
And it just elevates the whole thing.
Yep. Yeah. And as I've gotten older, it's not just the money, it's time, right? Because once, if you're good at what you do and you start to build a business, you could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's not sustainable. So you have to find, balance and harmony with your family life and, hobbies and passions and other things that play into your life, right? If you just want to work all the time, you're going to burn yourself out and probably not want to be an arborist anymore.
Mm-hmm. And I was talking to John White last week. Actually, the podcast episode was posted today on YouTube, and he was talking about deciding what you want out of your company. Do you want to grow it to a gazillion dollars, or do you want to have a lifestyle company, etc.? Do you guys keep busy in the winter? Do you tend to slow down? You
We
were
slow
talking
down.
about vacations in winter,
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah, we definitely slow down. We're, right now we're going out. This week we'll be out maybe 2 or 3 days this week. Next week, maybe 1 or 2 days. Temperatures are a little bit colder. Yeah, definitely slow down through the winter. Oftentimes it's right now we're doing all our oak pruning. So any oak trees because of oak wilt. So we're doing that. Any elm trees. And then we have a couple of properties that are like estates. And so we need to get equipment in the winter. So we got frost in the ground. We can actually get into those properties now. And then emergency work. So
there is work. If you want work through the winter, there is work there.
Yep, that's work. It's a bit slower. That's all.
Okay, very cool. We're coming up to the top of the hour now. I always hate it when I have to end a podcast. It's so much to talk about.
It's gone by pretty quick. Holy smokes!
It does. You mentioned just before we part ways, you mentioned that you read books. Any books that you've read that you would recommend other people to read if they wanted to start a company? For example, John, I think it's going to be a question I'm going to ask a lot now. John last week said Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. How to grow any company profitably.
I'm gonna go a totally different kind of direction there. I'm gonna go with pruning and fungi books because I think that's
okay.
Yeah. It's not a business spin on it, but it's something I feel a lot of arborists out there kind of lacking is tree pruning. So there's a couple really good pruning books out there. You can go to the ISA or ISA Ontario or ISA International's bookstore, and you can see it there. I forget the one book. The one book is called Pruning. It's like the Bible of pruning. I wish every company read that. And then there's some really good fungi books out there, right? So
interesting.
The business ones, to pull one off the top of my head, I don't know. I've read a bunch of business books. I listened to a ton of podcasts like this, but fungi. I think that's something a lot of arborists. If you're a production arborist, I think that's something a lot of people need to kind of focus on too, because it's kind of boring, right? Like for me anyways, learning about mushrooms and stuff, like it's cool, but it's not like you're 100 feet up a tree, learning how to do an M rig or getting a $20,000 contract from a big customer or something. But it's something that we can't really neglect.
And why is that? Why, interesting choice of book, but why is that important?
Well, the pruning is just, for us, we see so much work done incorrectly, and then we're often hired to fix poor pruning practices.
Okay, interesting.
Which is good business for us. And so if everybody did things properly, that would actually cut down on our business. That, and then the fungi it's far too often I see other companies either misdiagnosing a fungus or fungi on the tree and the severity of it. Like one time in the fall there was a tree I looked at, and the one other company had said the tree's totally fine, just needs to be pruned. Looked at it, and it was a specific type of fungi, and which was one of the big three, the nasties, and it was pretty bad. Did a little bit of a root excavation, found it was extensive root rot, and the tree was not safe. The tree was in fact quite hazardous and needed to come out, right? And so, I think that's one thing that's super important. And for us, like a lot of, like, for a climbing or production arborist, fungi can affect the structures that you're climbing, and
Absolutely.
it's important. Like, we're not climbing an engineered structure; we're climbing living organisms, and it's important to know as much about those living organisms as possible, right? And just reading some good books out there on fungus and trees is, I think, incredibly valuable.
It sounds to me like it's just going to up your game if you keep yourself
100%.
educated and interested, and that's important for your clients, and that's
Yeah.
important for elevating your business and being one of the best.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like when I'm meeting with customers and they're like, oh, we're getting a couple quotes. I'm like, okay, perfect. Looking at the tree here. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, you got a couple conchs there. You got a Ganoderma here. Oh, that tree over there has some Kretzmaria at the base. Did anybody notice that? And you start talking a
Mm,
whole other level above your
mm,
competitors. And they're like, well, nobody noticed that. And I'm like, well, I'm 30 feet away and I can see that from here.
right.
You know, you're gonna sell more jobs by
Right.
becoming a better, more qualified expert on what you're working in.
That's amazing. I think people should listen to that last statement you just made.
Yeah,
For real.
and yeah, thank you. But that's good mentorship,
Yeah.
right? It goes back to what we said at the beginning. It's surround yourself with people that are experts in the craft, right?
Mm,
And like there's one colleague, Michael Richardson. He's one of the smartest arborists probably in North America, right? He's a consulting arborist, works
mm.
globally. But I talk to him a couple times a week, right? Just about certain things, or what do you think of this, or what's your opinion on that? Like, it's for me, I'm like, you know what? I need somebody smarter than me to give. Just have a
Yeah.
look at it.
Yeah.
Take 20 seconds. What do you think?
Mm.
You know,
Fantastic.
and I got almost 40,000 hours in being an arborist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
There's always somebody you can learn from. There's always somebody you can tap into. You
100%.
know. Fantastic. Eric, so where can people find you and get in contact with you?
Yeah, you can. Well, our arborist website is Brooklin Tree Care .ca. So that's Brooklin treecare.ca. You can find us on Instagram at Brooklyn Tree, Brooklin, not YN, Tree. Or you can find me on Instagram at Eric Batty, EricBatty.
Perfect. I'll make sure I put those in the show notes as well, and people
Cool.
can get in contact with you if they wish. Thanks so much for joining me again, Eric.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Bye bye.